Alright, people, review of the week time. So, lot to talk about, a lot to dissect. We obviously got to talk about the Joshua card, the fallout from that, and I think that is going to be the primary focus of this video. There's obviously going to be a few other bits and pieces to talk about, of course, but I think we've been talking so much about Joshua Helenius, Joshua Wilder, Dylan White, etc., that we neglected to remember that there was a very good fight. We knew there'd be a good fight going into it, but we didn't talk about it enough. And, I definitely fell victim to that. I knew this fight was on, and shamefully I didn't make any videos on it, which was Emmanuel Navarrete versus Oscar Valdez. This fight happened last night. It happened in the United States. It was on a Top Rank show. And it was in, I thought it was Glensdale was in Arizona, because it was saying Glensdale, was like, that's definitely in Arizona. It happened in Arizona, and tremendous fight. I had a feeling this fight would catch fire. Valdez is normally, when is he not in good fights, as is Emmanuel Navarrete. Going into this fight, though, I'm going to hold my hands up. I was picking Oscar Valdez to win the fight by knockout, because I thought that Navarrete is very similar to Miguel Berchelt. And I actually thought Miguel Berchelt would win that fight because he was on very, very good form. And Oscar Valdez at the time was showing a bit of a decline. He was in a lot of wars. But Valdez hooked it all together and he absolutely dominated Berchelt. This was the other way around. I mean, Emmanuel Navarrete is a lot fresher. And he's just a better fighter than Berchelt, truth be told. He's only got one loss, which was many, many, many years ago. I think that was down at flyweight. This was obviously at 130 pounds. And Navarrete didn't put a foot wrong. He bashed Oscar Valdez's eye up real bad. But bear in mind, this was a tremendous fight. I knew now the styles would gel very well. There was no doubt about that. But absolutely tremendous. Navarrete is one of my favourite fighters to watch. And I believe this 3-division world champion, defending against Oscar Valdez. The question will be, I know some people are already thinking about it, Inoue versus Navarrete. That would be a great fight. That would be, oh boy, at 130. Navarrete is, even at 130, he's a big lump at 130. So how long he'll be there, I do not know. But I was a bit worried because Emmanuel Navarrete's last fight, although he won it by knockout, he didn't set the world alight. He didn't set the world alight in it. I think it was Liam Wilson was who he fought in his last fight. And I just thought that going into this fight, the styles would gel and Valdez would come out better. But no, boy, was I wrong. It was all Emmanuel Navarrete. Really, really put a beating on Oscar Valdez. And Oscar Valdez, he's been around. I remember seeing him. He's only 32. Seems like he's been around for years. I remember seeing him on, not even Manny Pacquiao versus Tim Bradley's undercard 3. That might have been the first time I seen him. Maybe I seen him before that. But he's always given very good entertaining fights, Oscar Valdez. So we'll see what he does next. On the undercard, I really was only keen on looking at Richard Torres Jr. He fought a guy called Willie Jake Jr., the Battle of the Juniors, and it was a first round KO win for Richard Torres. He is a heavyweight contender that I'll definitely be keeping my eye on. 24 years old, southpaw, another good heavyweight prospect that Top Rank have. Top Rank have one of the most, in terms of up and coming talent in the States, in boxing in general, but mainly in the States, Top Rank's roster is just tremendous. It really is. And when people say to me, who would I think has the most depth in terms of the biggest stars, you would say it's PBC. They've got the Canelos, Charlos, Tank Davises of the world, possibly Ryan Garcias. But in terms of just building for the future, Bob Arum and Top Rank have a tremendous stable. They really do. And Bob Arum is invested in the heavyweights. The man has more experience than many people have lived. Bob Arum's in his 90s. So tremendous fight, and Richard Torres will be keeping an eye on him. We go over to the UK and we talk about the card. Now, I didn't see any of the undercard fights that were on the Before the Bell show. I know Joe Stunner Boxing, and have a look there on screen actually. Joe Stunner Boxing, if you could go over, I'm going to pin his channel in the comment section. Had him on here a few times, and he's this close, lads, to 2,000 subscribers. I know myself, when you are close to hitting the milestone, it just feels like so far away. So I'd love for him to get to 2,000 this week. So if you haven't already been to Joe Stunner Boxing, go over and give him a look, listen to his videos. I can guarantee you'll like what you listen to. He was telling me that George Lidard versus this guy right here, whose name I'm not even going to try and pronounce. He's a Dutch fighter. There's not many of them around now, to be fair. Apparently this was a great 6-rounder. I didn't get a chance to see it. I will go and have a look at it. I saw Campbell Hatton versus Tom Ansel really wasn't impressed with Campbell Hatton. Now I have to say, really, I've never really been overly keen on Campbell Hatton. I think he's very crude and he needed more time in the amateurs. You know, they said under his own commentary that the reason why they turned to pro was because at the time there was no amateur shows going behind closed doors. I could understand turning pro if that was the case, if you were in your late 20s. Campbell Hatton was 20 years old. He had plenty of time. They really should have kept him amateur up until probably he was 23 and then time enough turning pro. But at that stage, I think it's too soon. And they really need to be careful with matching him because this Tom Ansell guy was not good. And he was picking up rounds in there. He won rounds. Johnny Fisher versus Harry Armstrong. As I say, yeah, Harry. Every time I see it, I'm like, don't say Henry, because I just see the name and I'm like, Henry. Well, Harry, his full name is Henry. You know, like Prince Harry, his name is Prince Henry, really. So probably is Henry. But Harry Armstrong did not look in particularly good shape, and apparently, well, he's no knockouts to his name. He was hit with a good shot early in the first round, and I thought Johnny Fisher was going to get him out of there in the first round. He threw everything at him but the kitchen sink, and he didn't get him out of there. And that's a rookie mistake, because what happened with Johnny Fisher, he had nothing in the tank. So he was really, and you know, Armstrong was really making a good go of it early on, and Johnny Fisher's going to want to thank his lucky stars that Harry Armstrong can't punch. He really can't punch, because that could have got nasty for Johnny Fisher in there. Fisher did, however, get a second wind. He went a couple of rounds. It was the 7th round, and eventually got rid of him in the 7th. I've said it once, I'll say it again about Johnny Fisher. I don't see the hype there with him. I don't think he's going to get to domestic level. I mean, if you look at the two guys who are going down the road of fighting for a British title, it's Fabio Wadley and it's David Adelaide. He may never get to that level, because those guys are levels and levels above Johnny Fisher. They really are. So we'll keep an eye on Johnny Fisher. I fear for the Chinese restaurant in the O2, because there's an all-you-can-eat Chinese restaurant in there. I'd say his dad went in there and damn near bankrupted them after the fight. So my deepest sympathies for the amount you had to fork out in food there. I can only imagine. I say the chef is still crying. In terms of Derek Chisora versus Gerald Washington, I'm just going to do how it is on BoxRec. Gerald Washington versus Chisora was what it was. Joe Stunner, no, it was Chris Andre, who said that in his opinion that Matchroom should offer Derek Chisora an advisory role, and I agree they should, because if it's money, Derek Chisora can sell any fight. You know, having him there with a press conference or anything like that, he's a lively character, he's full of life, he can sell it. He shouldn't be boxing. He shouldn't be. There's nothing left. There's nothing at all left in him. There really isn't. And I just fear at this point the damage has been done. Or if it's not done, another fight or two, then the damage will be done. And we'll look at Chisora and we'll look at him in a few years and just think, why didn't you stop earlier? You know, was it worth making these extra couple of mil to be speaking? It's not worth it, in my opinion. I think someone from Matchroom needs to go and have a long word from maybe Eddie Hearn, someone like that, and just say, look, we'll pay you an advisory role, we'll pay you a salary every year, you'll make some money, you'll travel, etc., etc., but don't get back in the ring, please. That I really hope he does. I really hope that's it. He's going out with a win, and I hope that's it. I really do. Filip Hrgović stopped Dempsey McKean in the 12th round. I thought that stoppage was premature, personally. I thought the fight was awful. Just awful. McKean was holding a lot. I wasn't really impressed with what. That's the first real proper look I've had at Dempsey McKean. Didn't impress me. Filip Hrgović was 243 and he looked like he couldn't have given a damn in there at all. Really not impressed with what I saw from Filip Hrgović in there. Not in the slightest. So Hrgović is the mandatory for Alexander Usyk, and if I was Alexander Usyk, I'd be looking at him and thinking, if I get through Dubois easy enough in a fortnight's time, I'll have him before December. Because I don't, when Hrgović came around first, and I'll bring up his box rec here real quick, we'll look at some of the fights I've seen. I've seen his fight with Tom Little, I've seen Pavel Sowers, I've seen his Zabarno Love, pretty much all of his fights. I've seen the majority of his. I haven't seen that Filippo Tora fight, seen Kevin Johnson core, but I've seen all these fights up until Molina, and I was impressed. I want to say I was looking at him against guys like Riddell Booker and stuff like that, and I was like, all right, well, they're not great, they're not amazing. But after that, I noticed a big decline in the aesthetic shape of Filip Hrgović and just his hunger for battle, it seemed, in fights. Against Zhang, he had a lot of stuff going on outside the ring. We have to take that into consideration. But a year removed, and he still looks completely disinterested. I'm not happy with what I've seen from Filip Hrgović, and I think there's a good fighter there, but he's not showing it. He's not showing it. And Alexander Usyk, I would imagine, is going to be looking at him thinking, easy night's work. And based upon his last couple of performances, he'd be right to do that, because I've not been impressed at all with him. I really haven't. Now we get to the main event, which is all I want to hear about. Anthony Joshua versus Robert Helenius. I'm not going to drag this video out to be a half-hour long video. I'm not going to drag it out too much. I've said what I've already needed to say in my post-fight and in my review, or my kind of like look at it the next day already today. I thought the performance from Joshua in terms of seeing his footwork and jab, that looks to have improved under Derek James, which I'm happy to see. Very tentative, too tentative, way too tentative. That was a fight that went 7 rounds that really should have went 3. Because if Joshua just opened up a little bit earlier and let the shots go, the shots were there, he could have got rid of Robert Helenius earlier, and he wouldn't have had a bloody nose and a eye that was swelling a bit. The mistakes he made, not moving his head off centre line, do that against Deontay Wilder at your peril. That's what I will say. Do it at your peril against Deontay Wilder. Improvements need to be made there, I believe, for Joshua moving forward, and I think he knows that. I know he's been talking about, Wilder next, etc., but I think he'd be well advised to have another fight or two. I really do. I think he would be well advised to have another fight or two, see how he gets on, go in there against Gerald Washington, a Chris Arreola, a Luis Ortiz, etc. See how you get on against them. Go in, get your knockouts, look a bit devastating, and then see how Wilder goes. And Wilder should have an interim fight as well. He's not fought since October last year, so he should really have a fight as well. That's my thoughts on that. In terms of some of the other news that's going around, Benavidez has confirmed that a fight with Demetrius Andre is in the works for November. Okie dokie. Let's see. November against Demetrius Andre. Demetrius Andre said he wants that Canelo fight. He could have had it this year if he'd fought Zach Parker last year. He's now got an even tougher task ahead of him against Dave Benavidez, and I think that's a step too far for Demetrius Andre at this stage in his career, but we shall see. Eddie Hearn declared that they will be looking to finalise Joshua versus Wilder within the next few days to take place in January in Saudi Arabia, and they will make an absolute killing. Like, they will legit make an absolute rake of money for that fight. So that you can see why they want to get that fight over the line, because it's just going to make an absolute bundle of cash. Richardson Hutchins will face Jose Zepeda, 140-pound clash on September the 23rd in Orlando, Florida. Jessica McCaskill will face Sandy Ryan in a unification fight. Interesting. And what is going on with this fight? So Ammo Williams is fighting Steve Rolls. There was talk that he was meant to fight Felix Cash on the undercard of Joshua versus Helenius, and we're still no closer to getting that fight over the line. And what the hell is happening with Felix Cash? I don't understand why Eddie Hearn is still... I don't know why Eddie Hearn still has him to a contract. I really don't, because that guy is so unreliable, it's not even funny. And Ammo Williams, I'd say he's getting peeved off as well, because he wants to get that. He wants that fight to get that fight over the line. Steve Rolls, he'll do what he needs to do. He'll beat up Steve Rolls, but what is the deal with that fight? Seriously. That this was announced this was announced just before the main event, I think it was, that Jesse Bam Rodriguez will face Sonny Edwards in a unification at flyweight, IBF, WBO titles on the line. It's going to take place in Arizona on December the 16th. I think that is tremendous news, and I think the fight is absolutely fantastic. I rate Sonny Edwards. I know he's a bit of a Marmite character. Some people really like him. A lot of people dislike him. In terms of his punditry skills, I don't think there's any disputing that. I think he's one of the best pundits in the game, period. Much less British boxing. I'm talking boxing in general. He's a fantastic pundit. He really has a good boxing brain. In terms of him as a fighter, is he the most entertaining fighter in the world? No. He's definitely not. But does he have a lot of skill? He certainly does. Very skilled fighter with Sonny Edwards. But he's going in there against Jesse Bam Rodriguez, who I think is one of the... He is going to be one of the future stars of the sport. He is tremendous. He's very talented. He has no fear in there. He's got a lot more tools to his game than Sonny Edwards. And I really do think that he's going to go in there and he is going to put a beating on Sonny Edwards. I think it's going to be a great fight. And bear in mind, Sonny Edwards is trained by Grant Smith, who is one of the most underrated trainers in boxing, because he has a great boxing mind too. Tremendous boxing mind is Grant Smith. So December 16th is going to be a good fight. I favour Jesse Bam Rodriguez, but I think it's going to be a tremendous fight. Canelo's trainer, Eddie Reynoso, has said that Canelo is actually looking to face both Charlos back-to-back. He's obviously facing Jamel on September 30th, and then he's looking to face Jamal straight after. I suspect the plan for Canelo was Jamel, Spence, and Benavidez, or maybe Jamel, Benavidez, Spence in that order. Spence took a very bad L against Terence Crawford, a big beating. So I'd say they're thinking, right, what do we do now? 3-fight deal, of course. So who was the third fight going to be? Or who's the, you know? So he'll probably take both Charlos. It wouldn't surprise me if he did. Every time I hear Jamal Charlo's name, I'm going to say he needs to be stripped. Every single time his name comes up, I am going to say he needs to be stripped. And why hasn't he been stripped? He needs to be stripped. So that fight is coming up now on September the 30th. I'm looking forward to seeing Canelo versus Charlo, and we'll see what he does after. If he fights Jamal, who needs to be stripped, he fights Jamal, they'll probably do that fight, depending on, time depends. Like, they might try and do it Mexican Independence Day, May next year. Or is that Cinco de Mayo? It's one or the other. Bob Arum has indicated that he would like to revisit Tyson Fury versus Alexander Usyk once again, after Alexander Usyk has fought Daniel Dubois, and after Fury has had his fight of sorts against Francis Ngannou. I was going to say Francis again though there, I don't know why. But against Francis Ngannou. Look, I hope Arum is serious. Arum, to me, certainly seems more... He definitely strikes me as someone who is more willing to try and make that fight than Frank Warren. You know, yes, Bob Arum has said some nonsense about, Fury is trying to make the fight, but he's definitely more boots to the ground than Frank Warren, who just talks absolute out of his arse when it comes to this Fury Usyk situation and saying, what's the point in fighting? They don't bring money. Well, you didn't say that when he was fighting Tom Schwartz on pay-per-view, didn't you, not Frank? So, look, if one fighter doesn't want this fight, it's not going to happen. It's as simple as that. I hope to God we do get this fight. But I'm not... I've gone to the point now where I'm just... If it happens, happy days. But just this last year has been a nightmare for this fight. It really has. It's just left so much bad taste in people's mouths. I'm just like, fine, if it happens, it happens. Terence Crawford has said that he welcomes a mega fight with Canelo. If it were to take place, it would be at 158-pound catchweight. That's ambitious, Terence. I like you. I think you're a great fighter, but Canelo ain't going to fight at 158 pounds. He couldn't even do 160 at this stage. He hasn't done 160 in 4 years. He ain't going to come down that low. No way in hell. Says here, Hasim Rahman Jr. is a backup opponent to face Logan Paul if Dylan Dennis pulls out of their fight on October 14th. Hasim Rahman Jr. is garbage. He really is. He is a horrendous fighter if you've never seen Hasim Rahman Jr. Hasim Rahman Jr. is a professional fighter. He's a professional prize fighter, but he is garbage, to say the least. Otto Wallin versus Murat Gassiev is reportedly being finalised. No official announcement yet, but looking to be finalised in late September. To take place in Turkey, of all places, which is a bit of a, for me, it's kind of like, that's a bit of a strange country, to be honest with you, to have the fight like this. But ayo, if it's televised in the UK, happy days. I think that's actually a decent heavyweight scrap, because both guys are kind of languishing in no man's land. They really are, aren't they? Otto Wallin is still living off that Fury performance. He still lost. That's 4 years ago nearly. And Murat Gassiev lost to Usyk 5 years ago, moved up to heavyweight. He's been riddled with injuries. And I think Gassiev has more potential at heavyweight than Wallin, but, you know, they're both languishing. They really are in no man's land at the minute. They really, truly are. So that's a lot of the stuff. Now, actually, I want to point out, and I'll see if I can find it here. I want to see if I can find if it's on any Twitter, because I did see something about, because I don't really want to paraphrase it because I don't want to, make a mistake with wording and stuff like that. But I did see somewhere during the week that Fabio Wadley was looking to negotiate with Frank Warren directly, and I'm just going to see if I can find the article here or something towards it, because it looked. See if we can find it here, because I want to just read a verbatim or get at least an indication as to what's going on with that. So let's see if I can find it. I should have really had this planned before I got it. Okay. No, it's not really coming up here, but basically, to cut a long story short, Fabio Wadley against David Adelaide, there was meant to be purse bids for that, and not happening, right? And the rumour mill is that Fabio Wadley is looking to do work with Frank Warren directly, right? So it would essentially mean that Eddie Hearn is essentially going to have no part in it, so to speak. So does that mean that he's no longer with Eddie Hearn? Does that mean that he's going out on his own? Because you got to remember, Fabio Wadley is managed by Dillian Whyte, and from what I can gather, he was on a fight-by-fight basis with Eddie Hearn, Dillian Whyte, and Fabio Wadley. So he's not like he's tied into a long-term deal with him or anything like that. And now Dillian Whyte obviously is having his issues. Are they going to throw the baby out with the bathwater? Not Eddie Hearn, but Dillian Whyte. Is he going to say to all the fighters who he manages, you're not fighting on matchroom shows anymore, you're just going to do your own thing? Maybe. In terms of Dillian Whyte, we haven't heard any more since, obviously the fact came out that he's had adverse findings. Dan Raphael has been saying it was multiple failed tests. The way Joshua performed last night would make you wonder, if Dillian Whyte was in there, what would have happened. I tend to suspect the same outcome. Joshua winning by knockout. Maybe it would have been a little bit trickier. Maybe. But I suspect it would have been the same thing. But who knows? Dillian Whyte maybe would have looked at Joshua and thought, you know what? I messed up. I could have been in there, and I could have been, letting my shots go and looking to land. At the end of the day, we'll have to look at the situation with Dillian Whyte and see when more stuff comes out, because there's not really been much said over the last week. I obviously talked about weaponized drug testing in a previous video, and false positives, the Marius Vac Ola Duradola situation from a few years ago now. And again, that's one of several incidents you could flag. With Dillian Whyte, I've given my 2 cents on this already. Gun to my head, I would say he probably is guilty, because he's done this before, or he's had issues with this before, and he has served a ban before, albeit for Jack 3D, which was an over-the-counter supplement. It was a pre-workout energy drink. But at this stage in his career, you would imagine that he's not going to get any favours, because he's not the A-side anymore. He's not mandatory challenger for the WBC. He's not headlining the pay-per-views. So it's going to be interesting to see what comes out in the next couple of weeks. But I would imagine Dillian Whyte is not going to be done any favours, is probably the best way I'd describe it. I wouldn't imagine that's going to happen with him. I could be wrong, you never know. In terms of everything else, I think that's pretty much it. Lads, I will leave it there. I hope you enjoyed the video. This is obviously going out in the morning. Back to the old roots of review of the week, going out on a Monday morning. But I hope you enjoy it. I hope that we all have a good week. This week, myself included. I hope someone gets good news. Maybe myself, maybe others, whoever. I hope someone gets good news this week. And I hope you enjoyed the video. It's been a very successful, very fruitful last couple of weeks on here. It's been amazing, really. I hit 12,000 subs August the 1st. It's now August the 13th at the time of recording, and I'm already at 12,330. So we are cruising through to 12k, and hopefully on to 13, on to 14, on to 15. 15k by the end of the year is the goal. I'd like to hit that, and then next year we make a play for 20,000 subs. We're getting there, lads. We are slowly but surely creeping up, and we're getting somewhere. The channel is really moving in good ways, and I noticed that by the viewer count going up every single month, and every single video, every stream I do, every watch along, every post fight. It's more and more and more, and I am absolutely in your guys' debts for all this. It's fantastic, it really is, and I appreciate it greatly. I hope you enjoy it. I'm not going to meander on about all that. Hope you enjoy it. Smash the like button if you could. Hit subscribe, of course, if you haven't already. For now, I will talk to you. Peace.